Howdy, partners! Today we'll be talking about what everybody has been talking about for the past 3 months, the US economy. More specifically, the US car market. In short, it's Jover. And just like in the bigger short, it's Jover because of US debt. But it's not all bad, because the way it's looking, the American car market is about to be a buyer's market. So, I'm about to get you a good deal on your car, so I think that's worth a sub. Now we'll split the video into 3 parts. What happened before, what's happening now, and how can we get our greasy little hands on a good deal. So, what was happening before? Well, remember that time when everybody had the flu and a lot of grandparents died? Well, during that time, most of the banks of the world were giving out loans like I give out cigarettes to middle schoolers. That is, more than they can take. So, the American people were taking on debt to purchase houses, pictures of monkeys, and cars at record low interest rates. Also, the standards for giving out these loans were dropped to stimulate the economy, meaning that unemployed people can take on car loans. Now, you can call me a Trump supporter for this, but I don't think giving out loans on assets that depreciate the second you buy them to people without an income is gonna get you your money back, Mr. Bank Person. That's like me giving a loan to a homeless person to buy a yacht. Not only that, but Sleepy Joe blessed us with stimmy checks. Now, groceries are great and all, but a brand new Hellcat gets far more pussy. Now, I don't know what percentage of stimmy checks went to a down payment on a car, but what I do know is that at the time, it was a seller's market. This was because, like any sane company, car manufacturers forecasted a contraction in demand due to, a global pandemic, so supply was limited. This prediction ended up being wrong due to the aforementioned interest rates boosting demand. To be fair, even if the car manufacturers wanted to increase supply, they couldn't due to the semiconductor supply chain issues. And since cars nowadays are computers on wheels, they really need that damn silicone. Also, around the same time, Big P of Russia decided to pull a little prank on its Ukrainian neighbors, who actually export a big portion of rubber parts to the world's car industry. Now, how funny this prank was is debated, but what isn't debated is that it's quite difficult to export anything when the forecast is cloudy with a chance of missile. Now look at this. Do you know what this is? Of course you don't. It's a supply and demand curve. We can use it to estimate the prices of things. We'll use it for the car market. Now, x-axis is how much stuff is being produced or demanded, and the y-axis is the price. Now, if you did know all of that, good boy! You're so smart, aren't you? Wow, Mr. Smarty Pants in the... Now, we said that the supply contracted due to the semiconductor shortage, suppliers cutting supply, and the war, causing supply to shift to the left, raising prices. And with low interest rates expanding demand, this caused demand to shift to the right, again raising prices even further. This is why the average American consumer was paying upwards of 20% markup on most new cars. Sometimes it was even worse. Everybody always brings up the Chevy Bronco. The MSRP, or manufacturer's suggested retail price, is $40,000. During the pandemic, you could pick one up closer to 80 grand. Now, I know this will be hard for some of you, but you'll need to recall high school economics, because the changes in price of a substitute good also influences demand. We have been talking about new cars, and a substitute for new cars is, you won't believe this, used cars. So we saw demand expansion in the used car market also. So what about now? Well, it ain't looking good. 1 in 4 car trade-ins for a new car are on upside down loans, meaning negative equity. What this means is that people trading in their old cars still owe more money than the car is actually worth. So, normally you take out a loan and you repay it. Let's say I take a $10,000 loan to buy a car with 0% interest. Fairy tale example, I know. And I repay $500 every month. After 10 months, I would have repaid $5,000 of a car worth $10,000. And let's say my sports gambling debts are catching up with me, and I need to sell that car quickly. Now, since it's now used and I need to sell it quick, I sell it for $8,000, and I use $5,000 of that $8,000 to pay off the loan. And so I'm left with $3,000, for which I technically paid $5,000, but hey, at least I got something. Now, what's happening now is that actually instead of selling the car for $8,000, I have to sell it for $3,000 because I bought it at an inflated price. So, I end up with no car and still owing $2,000. Now, honestly, you'll be lucky to owe $2,000. So, people upside down on their cars will probably keep them for longer, meaning demand for cars will contract. Not only that, but US auto loan debt is at a record $1.7 trillion, up $500 billion in the past 5 years. And those standards that were loosened during the pandemic are much more stricter now, meaning that demand contracts even further. What about supply side? Well, there aren't any semiconductor issues anymore, so car manufacturers can produce as much as they want. And they do, but with the shortening demand, we see cars sitting on dealer lots for 3 months on average. Mind you, during COVID, they would sit on a lot for 18 days. Anyway, with higher interest rates, higher insurance, and lower demand in the car market, we might be able to use this to our advantage. So how can we get our dirty little mechanic hands on a good deal? Well, I don't know. Now yes, rising interest rates, lower demand, and manufacturer panic, it seems like the car market is due for a price correction in our favor. But funny orange man decided that everybody else is cringe and America is not. America is based. America, in fact, is the most based country in the world. You've never seen a country more based than America. America is based. I had my good friend from China. He came over here and said, wow, America is so much more based than China. And that's what you get the point. Most likely, what will happen with the 25% automotive tariff is that manufacturers are just going to pass on the cost onto the consumer, meaning that prices aren't really going to change. Or maybe they will. So let's do our best foreign investment bank impression and wait and see. So what did we learn today? A little economics, a little finance, and maybe even a little business. I think that's worth a subscribe and a like. See ya!